Okay, so welcome to our pre-departure webinar for students from the States, Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. This pre-departure webinar is aimed to prepare you to come to Utrecht. And I'm Amy, your host during this webinar. And today's webinar, I will now give the floor to my amazing colleagues, Lowe and Arlinda. Are you there?
Yes, I am. I hope everyone can hear me. And
yes.
Hear Lowe, I think so. Yeah.
Check. Bounce a check.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arlinda. I work for the International Marketing Department together with my colleagues Amy and Lowe, and also some other people that are now answering your questions in the chat. I have been working for Utrecht University for about 4 years now. First, I worked at the admissions office, and then I switched to the marketing department. And together with Lowe, I am hosting this webinar. Lowe, do you also want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm Lowe. I started working at Utrecht much more recently than Arlinda. I moved to the Netherlands about 3 years ago from the United States. And luckily, I fell in love and have never wanted to leave because now I can't. And that's about it for me.
And we are also joined today here by Alexandra. I see that she's already in the webinar. She is one of our alumni, and we've asked her to share her story briefly at the end of our presentation. So she's going to share a bit of her experiences. I don't know, Alexandra, if you quickly want to introduce yourself before we get started, if you can turn on your video and audio, if you're here. You have to click 2 red circles. I see something happening. Yeah, hi. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you have to press the other red circle. Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Okay, I think everyone can hear me now. Yes. Hi, everyone. Alexandra. I studied for my PhD in Utrecht, finished a couple of years ago. Loved every minute, so I'll speak a bit later, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, then we get started. So this webinar. So we're divided the webinar into 4 main topics. So first, we're going to talk about everything that you need to arrange before you leave. So at this moment, in this stage. Then afterwards, we're going to talk about coming to the Netherlands. Then upon arrival, so everything that you need to arrange and that you can do in your first few weeks in Utrecht. And then lastly, we're going to talk about student life in the Netherlands and in Utrecht. So that's the menu for today. So the first part, before you leave, and before we start off with all the rest of the information that we're going to give you today, we have to address the elephant in the room, of course, the whole situation around the COVID-19 thing that we are all facing right now. We wish that we could predict the future and tell you how everything is going to develop in the upcoming months and tell you that it's all going to be fine, but we don't know, honestly. That's just the honest answer. What we can tell you is that health is our first priority, of course, and we follow the guidelines of the Dutch government in this sense. So as soon as something is communicated from the Dutch government and from our board of the board of the university, then we will let you know and we will keep you updated as best as possible. Of course, we want to welcome everyone to campus, but don't worry if you cannot make it to campus on time. Your education will start in September, and it will be possible to follow courses online and to join later on in the second semester, for example. So just something to keep in mind. That being said, I will now hand it over to Lowe, who's going to talk to you about the residence permit procedure.
Yeah, so the story with residence permits and visas is that they are not the same. You may hear these 2 terms thrown around a lot coming up to before you leave or when you leave. The only one that applies to people from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the US, and Monaco is the residence permit. You don't need a visa. And compared to dealing with the pandemic, this is actually a very simple topic because we pretty much do everything for you. There's no general residence permit for the Netherlands. Someone always has to sponsor you to be here. And for most of your cases, that sponsor will be Utrecht University. So hopefully by now, you've been invited to, or you've received the email to come into the Osiris online application system. And then there, you'll transmit to us a lot of documents that we're asking for. And among those documents are the things we need to apply on your behalf to the immigration service here in the Netherlands, the IND. We get a lot of questions about, well, how long does that take? And if you ask the IND, they will always tell you 3 months. It takes 3 months, and don't talk to us before then. But most of the time, that process only takes about 6 weeks. So 6 to 12 weeks is the most honest answer. And let's see, yeah. So the application fee for that permit is 225 euros. Once your application has been approved, they'll let us know.
Sorry, the part that I wanted to add is that you've received the application to fill in your documents, and with that you also received the invoice for the tuition fee and the visa fee, and that's also mandatory part of completing the procedure. Maybe you were going to say that, Lowe. Sorry, but
it was coming up. It was coming
okay,
up. That's
sorry.
Okay. So no problem. So let's see. Yeah, documents. Where were we? So we sent documents. We got the documents. And then they're talking back to us, and that does include the application fee and the tuition fee. And then we let you know. And then the last step is actually really simple, because you just have to wait until you're already here. And then at that point, you make an appointment to pick up your residence permit from the IND. And the only thing to know about that is if you were planning to pick it up right when you arrive, usually my experience working with the IND has been that they're booked 2 weeks ahead. So maybe think about making your appointment 2 weeks before you arrive, so that when you arrive, it's very easy to pick up your residence permit. And the deadline for all of that is a very practical one, and it isn't flexible, because June 15th is the latest we can submit all those documents and then still receive your approval in time for you to arrive in the Netherlands and start your study. My advice is to get the fees paid and all your documents into us well before that date comes along. So, maybe leave this webinar, go straight to start sending us documents. That's basically the feeling we're going for here.
And the nice thing about the IND, by the way, is that it has offices all throughout the country, and it actually has an office in Utrecht. So usually you don't have to travel to another city to make your appointment. So that's quite handy.
I've been there. It's very cute and very small.
Yeah, it's very small, but it's
the wait time there is better than in larger cities. So definitely recommend that one. If you have any more questions about this, we have all of the information about pretty much anything you could conceivably ask on our Welcome to Utrecht website, which is uu.nl/welcome to Utrecht. And you can find all this information there, in case you forget it now. So moving right along, the next thing we have to talk about is health insurance. Health insurance is very relevant to the thing we just talked about, because you need it in order to successfully apply for your residence permit. You have to have it. It is not optional. And you may choose to keep insurance provider from your home country, but I strongly advise against that, because you would have to make sure that they cover you internationally and that they cover the specific expenses in the Dutch situation. So the insurance that we generally recommend to students is the Aon Complete International Student Insurance. And it's very affordable. They do a weird thing and quote you the rate per day on the website, but it ends up being around 55 euros a month. It covers most situations. I've had it myself. The one thing I don't like about it so much is you have to pay out of pocket first and then be reimbursed, but it works. And then the other option, and the option that I'm on now, is the Dutch Basic Health Insurance, or Basiszorgverzekering, which is a fun party trick for Dutch people. You say that word and they're like, wow, you can say it. It costs twice as much, but it does have a couple extra benefits in that you can be serviced at most hospitals, and it allows for direct billing to the insurance company, and it's an important ingredient, in being able to work in the Netherlands. So if you were planning on working alongside your study, you need to have that Dutch health insurance and not international health insurance. Another thing you'll need is, unfortunately, your residence permit doesn't guarantee you the right to work. So you also need a work permit. And just like the process with getting your residence permit, someone applies for it on your behalf. It's the same for your work permit. So your employer here would have to apply for that work permit on your behalf. And unfortunately, there's a lot of employers out there who don't realize this. So you may have to become the expert on working with the IND and letting them know what they have to do to hire you. But that being said, you can always contact your program study coordinator, and they'll probably have a list of employers who are already very good and familiar with employing international students, and they may even have opportunities related to your study. Am I forgetting anything about working, Arlinda?
Well, the only thing is that since you are here on a study visa, there are some strict restriction when it comes to hours that you're allowed to work. It says so in the slide, but you're only allowed to work a maximum of 16 hours per week or 3 months full-time during the summer. And the reasoning behind that is that, of course, you are here on a study visa, so you're not allowed to exceed that.
Yes. Yeah, I think the idea being that you're here to study and work if permitted.
Yeah.
So the last thing we're going to talk about in the nitty-gritty section of the presentation is the financial matters, which is essentially just payments. And we kind of covered it earlier talking about the residence permit, but we go into it here just to say that once you've accepted the offer in Osiris and you've sent us all the documents, you should get in your email an invoice. And the only way to pay that invoice is by wire transfer or bank transfer. Unless, of course, your financial aid is covering your tuition and your application expenses and such. So in that case, you need to forward that invoice to your financial aid provider as soon as possible. And I think that about wraps it up for this, unless Arlinda has anything more to add.
No, I think that's it. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next fun topic. One
the most fun.
We all have to deal with, and is very important: housing. Yay!
Yes, the good news that I just got today was that I'm actually in a short stay housing for a different university, and they just extended my contract for another year because of the pandemic. So
that's nice.
It's exciting. But the real story on housing is that it's incredibly challenging to find. Sadly. We have done a whole webinar. Arlinda did it with another one of our colleagues, Daphne. And it gives you like all the most important and relevant information on housing. So in this webinar, we're going to be a little bit more brief about it, but you can find on our website that pre-recorded webinar and lots of links to different services and ways to find housing. So definitely check that out when you get a chance. In this webinar, I just want to draw your attention to a few points that I've put here in bold. And the first one says, broaden your search. Look outside of Utrecht. And if we were talking about any other city, that might seem a bit unmanageable commute-wise and things like that. But I want to show you a map that really illustrates exactly how small Utrecht is. So Utrecht is these two concentric circles. The smaller circle is just the city center, and the larger circle is the whole city, essentially. And Dutch people like to think about commuting time, traveling time, in terms of how long it takes to get there by bike. So that's what we see written in the times all over this map is the biking time. To get from that center circle to the perimeter there takes about 20 minutes by bike. And if you don't know exactly what that's like, it's a very short distance comparable.
It's like 3 kilometers or something?
It's nothing, essentially. So trying to live inside those two circles can be expensive, and there's a lot of housing that it's just such a scramble. You have to be the first one to click on an ad, and then if you're not that first person, you don't get it. But if you look just outside the city in all these little villages, or in Dutch they're called dorpjes, which is just super cute, you may find not only an easier housing situation to get into, but also that it's cheaper. So there's a lot of pluses. And if we look at Zeist over here, it's actually right next to the science park, which is where a lot of classes take place. So if your classes are at the science park, you may actually even be better off living in Zeist, let's say, or Bunnik, than the city center, because it's actually closer to where your classes are taking place.
Exactly.
So broadening your search outside of Utrecht is a really good way of securing housing that it's hard to know about if you're not
and by
here.
cycling a couple of kilometers to university, you become really indulged in the Dutch culture, I gotta say. So that's another big plus.
Yeah, it's very Dutch to bike. We'll talk more about Dutch culture a little bit later, but yeah. Just to illustrate exactly how tiny Utrecht is, here it is overlaid on Toronto.
But we're going to let that sink in for a few seconds.
It's that little yellow outline, and that if we get a little closer, this strange little jutting out on the right side is actually the science park. So that's the whole city there. It's tiny.
I see someone saying, that's so small. Yes, it is very small. It's the Netherlands.
That's everything in the Netherlands. We have more going up and down than across. And there's a tax reason for that. It's funny enough. So to secure that housing, we have a couple different services outside of the ones that are normally associated with the university. One I want to mention here is Kamernet, because Kamernet doesn't just show you empty apartments or houses, but also shows you rooms available inside other people's houses. Oop, we went back a slide for some reason.
Oh, sorry.
So it is you do have to pay for that service, but I think it's worth it. I've used it myself and found some things, and and it has a lot of neat interface features that help you search and give you alerts when something that meets your search criteria appears and things like that. So that's a good one.
Yeah, and on our website, uu.nl/housing, there's a whole list of other housing providers or platforms that you can use and look into. And it differs a little bit. Some of them are paid and some of them are free, and then you have to pay once you want to react. So there's different constructions in that sense, but there's a whole lot of lists that you can explore.
Yeah. If I thought you would remember all the names, I might mention them, but I have a feeling you're better off looking at the website. So, the last thing I want to say about housing is that, just don't be picky, kind of like you have to take whatever you can get at first. And then I've definitely moved in the 3 years I've lived here. I think I've moved 7 times. So that's sort of just
very, very common for Dutch students or international students in the Netherlands to move around. If you can get a place for a couple of months, never hesitate, just do it. And then once you're actually in the country, then it becomes way easier and you get to know other people and you broaden your network. That's also how a lot of people find rooms, just through someone else that they know or someone that knows someone that they know, right?
Yeah, 6 out of the 7 places I've lived were because I had a friend who I knew through sports, who had a cousin, who had an open room.
Exactly. That's how it goes in the Netherlands.
You can use Facebook to find housing, but you have to watch out for scams there. Scammers are taking advantage, especially of expats and internationals, a lot. And they do some pretty exceptional things to accomplish that. So the 2 general rules for that are, if it's too good to be true, it isn't. And the second one is, don't pay anything until you've signed a binding contract. And there's even free, I learned this the hard way, there's lawyers who will work for free that are paid by the city to review the contract that your landlord puts in front of you to make sure it's all kosher, legal.
Yeah, and we also have a housing support office, of course, so they can also help you with these kind of legal things that come with renting a house in the Netherlands. So, for example, a house owner might only have a contract in Dutch, and then you don't speak Dutch, and you're like, so what am I gonna do with this? So in those cases, you can also always come to the student support desk and just explain them the situation, and they can help you out.
All right, so I think that closes out this section. So now I think Arlinda is going to tell you about how to get here.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. I was just thinking if we forgot something on the housing thing, but I think we're okay. So we're moving on to coming to the Netherlands. When should I start making travel arrangements? Well, of course, this becomes a bit of a difficult question also in regard to the whole COVID-19 situation, because we cannot predict the future, unfortunately. What at least we can advise you is to not make any travel arrangements before your residence permit is approved. Because we don't know how long that's going to take. Of course, we can give you a ballpark, but it would be very unfortunate if you book the flight a few days before your residence permit gets approved. So please always wait for that to happen, or try to see if you can book your flight with flexible dates, so you can change it according to the situation. So that's one tip that we can give you. So practically speaking, the Netherlands has one big airport. It's called Schiphol. It's near Amsterdam, our capital. And from Amsterdam to Utrecht is actually not that big of a distance. It's about 30 minutes with the train. You can choose to take a taxi or an Uber from the airport, but I'm warning you guys that is quite expensive. So if you want to do that because you have a lot of stuff or something like that, maybe you can see if you can team up with some other people that are also coming in from your country, or that you can meet at Schiphol to maybe share a cab or an Uber, because that will be significantly cheaper. We generally advise to use the train because there's very good connection. And it's very easy to get from Schiphol to the train station, because it's right under the airport. So you only have to go down the stairs and then you're at the train station. The train goes very frequently. It goes 4 times in an hour, so every 15 minutes. And it's about 10 euros for tickets. Do keep in mind when you're planning your trip that during the night, the trains go less often. So then they only go once an hour. So taking the train from the airport, you have to buy a ticket. You can do that at the counter. There is a sort of actual desk where you can go to at bigger stations, such as Schiphol, or you can buy a ticket yourself at one of these machines that you see here on the picture. After you've bought a ticket, you have to validate it. So you have to check in and out, because if you bought a ticket but you don't check in, then you can still get fined. So please remember to find these little poles that you see here on the down right corner, and you have to tap your ticket in front of it, and then it will say beep, and then you're good to go. And you also have to do this after you've checked out your tickets. Yeah, so that is about the NS is the National Railway Company of the Netherlands, by the way. So they have this yellow and blue logo. Yeah, this is a slide that we recently added because as of 1st of June in the Netherlands, it's mandatory to wear a face mask in public transport. So that's
I've got mine.
Look at that. I still have to get mine. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. I also heard that on Utrecht Central Station, there's a machine actually where you can get them, like the same way you would get a beverage. You can also get a face mask from the central station. I heard. I haven't seen it, but at least it's good to know in advance that this is a mandatory thing now. So if you're taking public transport, an OV chip card can become very handy. OV chip card is a card that we use throughout the Netherlands, and it can be used for all types of transportation. So the bus, the train, the tram, the metro, everything. So it's one card for all public transports, very easy. You have 2 different types. So there's a yellow one and there's a blue one. The blue one is an anonymous one, so everyone can just buy that at a counter or at a sort of desk at the train station. And the blue one, you can just put credit on it on a machine, and then afterwards you can just check in and out and travel with it. If you get a yellow one, then that's a personal one, so it is connected to your Dutch bank account. So for that, you do need a Dutch bank account first. So with the yellow one, it has some benefits because you can load subscriptions on there. So if you want to have a certain subscription from the railway company, you can put that on your personal travel card. And you can also make sure that it loads credit on it automatically, so you don't have to always update it manually, and that's very handy. Did you get an OV chip card, Lo, when you came to the Netherlands first?
Like as soon as humanly possible. It's like I had a bank account and an address, and I got the personal card, the yellow one, and it's just super handy. And the best thing about it is the automatic upload feature. I set it at 50 euros right away, and you just tap, you're in, you're out, and then your bank gets smaller magically. And
yeah, you can choose with what amount you want it to. It can be 10 euros or 20 or higher. It depends on what you want and how often you use the.
My partner got the 10 euro option, but then because oftentimes it takes off more than 10 euros, like especially on the train, it usually deducts 20 before it gives you the amount back, and it does a double upload.
Yeah, that's another rule for the train, because usually for train journeys, you need to have a minimum amount of 20 euros on your card. Otherwise, it won't let you check in. So those are some practical tips for public transport in the Netherlands. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is the app that you see on the right side. It's called 9292. It's a very handy app for public transport in the Netherlands. So it basically shows you where you have to go, which platform, how you have to walk from the train station to your final destination. And it's usually more accurate than Google Maps. So most people prefer it over Google Maps because it also keeps in mind any cancellations or delays more accurately. So that about public transport. Something else about trains. This is a very helpful slide. I've heard many international people coming through the Netherlands that didn't know this. So we have two types of trains in the Netherlands. One is an intercity and the other one is a sprinter. And you would think maybe that the sprinter is faster because it's called a sprinter, but it's not. The intercity is the fast one. So for example, between Utrecht and Amsterdam, there's a train that goes from Utrecht to Amsterdam, and there's both an intercity that goes from Utrecht to Amsterdam and a sprinter. And the intercity goes directly from Utrecht to Amsterdam, but the sprinter stops at every little village and every little station in between. So you will get there eventually, but it's just taking you a longer time. So if you are rushing at the train station and you need to get a train and you see Utrecht on the train and you think, oh, I'll jump in, and then you find out that you're on the sprinter, it's going to take you twice as long. So keep that in mind. It's a very useful tip. They also look differently, by the way, as you see on the picture. So you can recognize it also by the train. But
just get on the yellow one. That's the answer.
Yellow is good. General rule of thumb. That was about up on arrival. No, not up on arrival. We're heading
here.
Now we're gonna get into up on arrival.
And I was very impressed to see some questions in the chat already. That someone has been doing their reading, because there was already a question about registering at the gemeente, and they even used the word gemeente, which in English is the municipality. So within 5 days of your arrival in the Netherlands, you are meant to register with the municipality that you live in. And so I'm guessing for many of you that'll be Utrecht. And you can see in the photo the gemeente building. It's right next to Central Station. Registration is the way the Dutch government keeps track of everyone living in the Netherlands. And if you're from the United States, it's a bit like a social security number. I was a little shocked that they kept track of where everyone is, because in my home state, New Mexico, they still send me jury duty summons as if I still live there. They have no idea I'm not there, which is hilarious. But a BSN enables you to participate in some of the bureaucratic but nonetheless important parts of Dutch society, such as opening a bank account or registering for taxes. Ooh, taxes. So to register at the municipality, you do have to make an appointment. And then at your appointment, you bring your identifying documents like your passport or ID card. And you need a rental contract, a signed rental contract with your name on it. And on this slide, it says that if you're a non-EU student, bring your residence permit. But my experience doing this process myself was that actually the IND and the municipality communicated with each other after I had registered in order to make sure all my details were correct, and then make the residence permit. So I don't think the residence permit is strictly necessary at your...
It depends a bit on the gemeente that you're gonna live. They can all have their different rules. So I think for the gemeente Utrecht, I think the residence permit is not a requirement, but it could be if you're registering at another smaller gemeente that they might have other requirements. So please keep that in mind. It could also be that if you're going to live in a bit of a smaller gemeente, that they're not so used to international students. So Utrecht is a big municipality and they're used to international students. They even have a specific desk for international students that have to register. It could be that at other gemeentes they don't really have that, or that they don't have any information in English, for example. If that is the case, please contact us because we have a lot of experience with these gemeentes. We know what they usually require and we are in contact with them. So don't hesitate to reach out if you don't understand everything.
Yeah. And it looks like there's even a special desk for international students in the gemeente. So I think that's exactly where you need to go. Moving right along, the next thing we got to talk about is money. The Netherlands already didn't use a lot of like cash. And now that the pandemic has happened, now it's just not tolerated. No cash, zero cash. But we also in the Netherlands don't really like credit cards. So unless you're like in the center of Amsterdam paying for canal tours, you don't really need a credit card. What you need are these Maestro or VPay cards, which certainly resemble credit cards, but they have the chip in it, and they're more like a debit card. They're called PIN cards, and they allow you to pay contactlessly. And yeah, so how do you get one of these amazing cards? Well, you get a Dutch bank account, and there's just no reason not to get one. They're wonderful. I love them. And you can pay for pretty much everything using that method. I even have like the app on my phone, and now I can like hold my, like they've just gotten with Apple Pay. And then there's also the Ideal online payment portal, which allows you to pay for most like you can pay for takeout, you can pay for online shopping, all with Ideal. There's the Tiki app, which allows you to send money back and forth between your friends with Dutch bank accounts. It's really easy to split things, or just yeah, it's just great, very efficient. And then you also see on this page, it says here alleen pinnen. That's the sign that means that you can only use that card, and that's a lot of places these days. Is there anything I'm forgetting about Dutch bank account? Oh,
no. Well, how to open them, but that's the next slide.
yes, well, that's actually quite easy. These are the biggest banks in the Netherlands, and what's great about them is that they have a lot of experience dealing with international folks. So some of them even will open an account for you before you have your BSN. All you need to have to open that account is an address where they can send things. You'll get familiar with this little device. It's called an identifier. Each bank has its own version of it. And it's used for verifying, it's a security device essentially. And ABN, the bank that I have, even has a branch in the airport that you can sort of just land at, and as long as you have an address to give them, sign up for a bank account right there. Yeah. And then it used to be that we'd even have all these banks at our orientation. But this year, I think that's going to be different. So orientation is going ahead on the dates planned, the 29th and the 30th. But it's being revamped because we just have this feeling, I don't know why, but that maybe not all of you will be able to make it there based on the restrictions in your home country or the restrictions in our country. So it will still be a chance for you to meet fellow international students. It'll still be a chance for you to get acquainted with your faculty and program. and hopefully learn a little bit about life here as a student. But I have a feeling it'll be changed to include a lot more online components.
Yeah, exactly. And they're looking into it now on how to revamp this and adapt this according to also the measures of the Dutch government. And we will keep you updated, and you will receive an official invitation to these orientation dates later on.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about with regards to things you should get when you arrive is a bike. Well, you don't have to get a bike, but it's just very quintessential Dutch life to buy a bike. And let's see, the thing about bikes is that they get stolen quite often. There are on average, 3 bikes per person in the Netherlands, but somehow that doesn't prevent them from being constantly stolen. And strangely enough, the biggest bike thief in the Netherlands is actually the Dutch government. And I think that's mostly because of people's fondness to park their bikes in the exact places where you shouldn't. And they're even clearly labeled, and people do it anyway. So that being said, your best bet is probably a secondhand bike. You can get one for 50 to 100 euros. I spent 99 euros on my first now stolen Dutch bike. And I actually honestly don't miss it at all. For that price, I was like, so long, you barely functioned. Goodbye. And I got a nicer one, and still fairly cheap. You can find them on the Dutch eBay Marktplaats. You can also find them on Facebook. You can find them. There's even, I think, an Utrecht bike shop, like associated with the university. The other option is to rent it, but I think renting a bike will end up costing you more, unless you're planning to not bike that often. But seeing as that the Netherlands is like the most bikeable country due to it being like completely flat and below sea level, and that it's just a quintessential part of Dutch culture, I highly advise getting that bike. All right.
Yeah, definitely. Buying a bike, just getting on the bike is just a part of the whole Dutch student experience, I think. And indeed, renting a bike will be more expensive in the long run, probably. But you do have the certainties of when it gets stolen or when it's broken, then you can just call the renting company and they will come and fix it for you. So it depends a bit on what you want in that sense. Okay, we're moving on to the last part of this presentation, which is student life, the fun part, I hope. There we go. Oh, oops, sorry. So there's loads of things that you can do next to your studies as a student in Utrecht. First of all, we have a very big sports center. It's located at the Utrecht Science Park. Of course, at this moment, unfortunately, it's closed, and they're doing a lot of classes online and things like that. So we hope that in the future, in the near future, they are able to open again. But either way, you can follow online classes now at this moment. It costs about 17 euro per month to join Olympus, or 140 euros for 1 year. And with that subscription, you can basically do everything. So you can choose which sport you want to do. There's a gym that you can go to. There's group lessons that you can sign up for. There's a swimming pool. So there's loads of different sporting things that you can do, and you can also try out multiple things with this one subscription. So that's kind of nice. Other options that we have some general gyms that are not affiliated with the university. They are a bit more expensive, I think. But if that's your choice, you can also sign up for one of those, like the Train More or the Basic Fits. They're basically all over Utrecht and other cities as well. We also have a cultural center that's located in the city center of Utrecht. And at our cultural center, you can do classes in music, dance, theater, photography, those kind of fields. The courses have a discount for students. So as a student, you pay the lowest amount of fee. They also have rehearsal space that you can rent out. So for example, if you play the piano, but of course you don't bring your piano with you on your international student experience, then you can rent a space in Parnassus with a piano to practice there. And that's also with a discount for students as well. They also have a bar where they do performances, or where you can have a drink. Again, Parnassus is closed at this moment, and I'm hoping that they could reopen soon, but they also do a lot of online classes now at the moment. Learning Dutch. Yeah, a lot of people ask us this. Is it necessary that I speak Dutch if I come to study in the Netherlands? And the first answer is no, it's not necessary. Definitely not. Everyone speaks very well English, especially within the university environment. You can get by fine with English in the supermarkets and in the restaurants and in everything throughout the city. Then again, if you think it's fun, or if you're planning on staying for a longer time in the Netherlands, if you're planning on working after your studies, then it can come in handy to learn the language. And there's different ways on how to do that, depending on how hardcore you want to learn it. So there's more informal ways, such as apps. We have the Hoi Holland app, where you can learn some informal Dutch with pictures and videos. We also have Duolingo that has a Dutch track in there. If you want to do like a real legit online course, or you have to go to Babel, that's our language institute, that's also affiliated with the university. So again, you get a discount as a student, and there you can do an actual course that will get you to a certain level, and you have to do exams. So that's more like the real deal if you want to learn Dutch. The gemeente, the municipality, they also offer Dutch courses that you can look into. And then again, there's lots of informal ways that are also organized by student associations, for example, like ESN, the Erasmus Student Network. They also organize more informal things such as a language cafe, where you can join different tables and speak a different language. So there's loads of initiatives going on if you want to learn some Dutch. But again, you don't have to if you don't want to, and you just plan on coming here for a year. So. Did you learn some Dutch, Lo? I think you do, right?
Oh ja, zeker. Ik kan heel goed Nederlands.
Yeah, okay. So that is about learning the language. Then useful shops. If you're coming here, it might be handy to already know what kind of shops there are and where you can go to buy your groceries and stuff. So the ones in the middle, these are supermarkets. So you have the Albert Heijn and the Jumbo, which are kind of like the main big supermarket chains in the Netherlands. You will see them most often, probably. That being said, they're also the most expensive ones. So if you want cheaper, non-branded stuff, you can go to the Aldi and the Lidl. But of course, there's less of these stores within Utrecht, so maybe you have to cycle for a bit. But then you do have cheaper groceries. So yeah, depends on what you want. We have the IKEA, of course. There's an IKEA in Utrecht, very good to furnish your room. And then on the right-hand side, we have these amazing shops, the HEMA and the Action. And I talked about this with Lo earlier, and we were like, we can't really define what kind of store this is, because you can basically buy everything there.
Yeah.
It's really an experience to go there.
It's not like Target, if you're familiar with Target. It's not like Target. Like, you can buy everything at Target, but it's not like Target. Action is its own special place.
Yeah. It's especially the Action is very cheap. The HEMA is a bit more pricey, but also has a lot of nice stuff. The HEMA is also a very good store if you want to buy a gift for someone. I honestly, the HEMA is also typically Dutch. They sell a lot of Dutch stuff like stroopwafels and things like that. But yeah,
they're opening in New York soon, which is ridiculous. They're opening a branch in New York.
Oh, well, if you're from New York, then you can already prepare for going to the Netherlands by going to the HEMA. But yeah, we definitely recommend just a visit once you're in the Netherlands, because it's fun and it's a unique experience. And the Kruidvat and the Ethos, the other two that you see here on the slide, these are like drugstores. So you can buy toiletries and shampoos there and stuff. So these are some useful shops. And then, the Dutch food. So let me tell you this. Let me tell you just now, just from the beginning. I don't know if you maybe know this already, but the Dutch are not really known for their famous cuisine. I don't think I've been anywhere around the world where they have a very fancy Dutch restaurant, right? That doesn't exist. Basically, Dutch cuisine is fried stuff, mainly. So a lot of these things on this slider you see is typically Dutch food, and it's usually it's fried cheese, it's fried meat, it's fried dough. So everything that is unhealthy, basically. I don't know, Lo, you said that the kapsalon was your favorite from
That's
this one,
right.
Yeah.
Kapsalon, which technically means like the hairdresser. I don't know what they have to do with each other, but there's a place that knows me by name. Like, oh, hello, you're back. Hey, Lo. Don't go there anymore, though.
Yeah, so the kapsalon, it's fries and it's meat and it's garlic sauce and salad, I think.
Don't forget the cheese. Don't
cheese.
forget the cheese. Yeah. And they put the salad on top so you can like pretend you're eating healthy.
Yeah, so
it's a salad.
Yeah, this is all we can tell you about the Dutch and their cuisine. You're just gonna have to experience it when you come here, but don't expect too much of it. I think.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
And then a little bit about the Dutch culture. So this is very confronting for me because I am Dutch, actually. So it's a bit weird to say this about, oh, the Dutch do this and the Dutch do that. So maybe Lo will have to jump in at some point to to make it a bit more clear. So there's a lot of these things on this list that we as the Dutch people do. And this list actually comes from the website Stuff Dutch People Like. It's a blog. It's really funny. I think it's also funny for Dutch people as well. So if you want to follow that, you can go to the website. And I think they also wrote a book, but it's really nice to get to know a little bit more about Dutch culture. What is the most interesting thing for you on this list, Lo?
Well, I think the thing that captures it the most is doom normal, because it's like the Dutch are very much about not taking themselves seriously. They know their food isn't good. They know their language is hard. They know. So the rest of that expression, do normal, is in English like be normal because normal is weird enough.
Yeah. I think that pretty much sums it up. Definitely, yeah. Oh yeah, and the stroopwafels, of course. We didn't include them in the food picture, but you can see here that the stroopwafels, that's one of the actual good things that come from the Netherlands, I think. So if you haven't tried those, you should. They're really good. They also have like freshly baked ones from the markets, like these open market squares that you can visit. They're usually in city centers of bigger cities, and there you can also buy them when they freshly make them with the caramel, and so it's really nice.
They're delicious. I love them. I gained some pounds.
That's
with them.
So we've come to the end of our presentation, and I think we did really well time-wise.
Yeah.
This is just a final checklist of everything basically that we've discussed in this presentation. So if you haven't done so, confirm your place at UU. Then after you've done that, you will receive the invoice for the tuition fee and the residence permit. Pay your tuition fee, pay that on time, make sure you have valid health insurance. Don't forget your passports, check accommodation, bring appropriate clothing, because depending on where you're coming from, it might be very different from your home country. We tend to have a lot of rain in the Netherlands, and also a lot of seasons happening during the same day. So it can be rainy in the morning, and then in the afternoon, the clouds open up, and then all of a sudden it's warm. So you really have to be prepared to bring layers and bring a raincoat. It's very important. Before you come here, plan your trip with the public transport, or at least you know what you're going to do once you land at Schiphol. Have a plan. Join the orientation days and schedule an appointment with the municipality and an appointment with the bank to open a bank account. I think that is the main thing. Yeah, and if you have any questions along the way, you can go to the student service desk, and they can always help you if you have any questions. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah.
I see Amy is already tuning in. So.
Yes. Shall we have Alexandra to have few words here?
Yes.
To share her experience?
Yeah, if she's still here.
Yeah.
Yes, something is happening.
Yeah.
And microphone set up, so just give it a second. There I am. Hello, everyone. So I'll just be really brief and really happy to answer questions. I think the presenters covered it so far. So I lived in Utrecht for about 5 years. I studied for my PhD, so I think my experience will be a bit different. But you know, I just want to say the HEMA is a magical, wonderful place, and you should all go there. And I don't know what the equivalent in Canada is. I'm Canadian, but it's a great place to get just about anything that you might need. So I've just written down some notes, but the first thing I did, I landed at Schiphol. I went down, I got on the train, I went to Utrecht. I had a temporary place to stay, and then again had to go through the whole the difficulty of finding a flat, which I did a couple of months later, but it did take some time. So I would echo that sentiment. But the second day in the morning, I got up and I went and bought a bike for, I think, 80 euros I paid, and I had that bike for about 3 years. So I think the key is to get a really good locking system, and to keep an eye on it. But yeah, I think to make the most out of your time in Utrecht, you really want to not get involved, but I mean, get involved in your department, but join a club, do a meetup, try to meet people. I think, learning Dutch is a great thing to do. I tried, didn't have great success, but, there are some courses that are offered. So I'd recommend giving it a try. It makes things like, getting groceries and getting directions a lot easier. In terms of university profs and, graduate students, they're really approachable. I do say so myself, but, you can go and you can approach them and you can feel, just have a chat or talk about the work. I think that's really good, and to try to get involved in the department. And then, and I think the thing that, the list of things Dutch people like is a good thing, but, something that shocked me, and I know shocked some Brits who I studied with, is how very direct the Dutch people can be. And it can be really off-putting at first, but you just have to remember that, it's just sort of like a cultural difference that is a bit jarring at first, but, I'm lucky to have a lot of great colleagues I still keep in touch with. And, if this COVID thing wasn't happening, I'd be over this summer to visit them. So I just want to say to everyone, I'm happy to answer questions, but Utrecht is great. You'll have a wonderful time there. And I think just get involved and ask lots of questions and have a great time and enjoy your studies.
Thank you. And I saw a painting behind you. It's Utrecht?
It is. This was a gift from some of my colleagues when I defended my PhD. So I've got it hung up in my house. So I thought I'd background. But I loved the years I lived in Utrecht. It's a great little city. So I'm a little jealous of everyone getting ready to go over and study there, because it was a great time in my life, and I really had a great time there.
Yeah, since you had amazing 5 years in Utrecht, and thank you for sharing your experience. Let's start some questions here. So, should I buy a cheap phone or on arrival, or can I purchase a Dutch SIM card?
I would be happy to take that one. This is my phone from the US. It has a Dutch SIM card in it. It is quite easy. They will send the SIM card to your house. There's even some that don't have physical locations. You just sign up online. They send you the SIM, and you just talk to them through, actually, Facebook, oddly enough. Works like a charm. Real cheap plan, too. I think I pay 11 euros a month or something. And I think it's unlimited data. So, yeah. SIM card, that's the answer.
Thank you, Lowe. Do we have more questions? So what is the company for the SIM card, Lowe?
I use Ben NL. It's very hard not to say punt, because everything is punt NL here instead of dot. But yeah, it's Ben punt or dot and you know what I mean.
Okay. So guys, if you have more questions, please type in the chat and then I will publish them on the screen. Okay, I saw this one. So what is it like living in the cities outside of the city center? I think, Arlinda, you just got your new place, right? I think you're qualified for this question.
Yeah, so I was actually when you saw the little map, there were all these villages, and I actually just moved to one of those villages. So I live in Werkhoven, which is under Oudijk. So I cycle for about 9 kilometers to the Uithof, to the Utrecht Science Park, where we have our office. So it's about a half an hour. If I'm lazy, I can also take the bus, and it will take me 20 minutes. So for me, I really like it because you can go to the city center whenever you want to. You can just take a bus or go with the bike, and you will be there in less than an hour, like 45 minutes. But I also like the relaxed part that you have in these small little villages, because of course the Netherlands doesn't have any like great big national parks or anything, but we do have quite some nice nature. We have forests, and we have little rivers, and farmlands, and it's all flats, but it's very beautiful. So yeah, you have a lot of time to also experience that, and to go on runs or hiking in the area. So I like to have a little bit of both worlds, actually, both close to the city center, but also more the urban, the rural area, let's say. I don't know, Alexandra, where did you live in Utrecht?
So I was really lucky. I lived right sort of in the center, in the south of the center of the city. So I was, 10 minutes cycling from the science park where I worked, and, a 5-minute walk into town. I do have some good, some friends who lived in the city center, but then moved out to Bunnik, which is another one of the little suburbs, and they love it out there. And it's still quite close, but it is a lot quieter, I think. But again, like Arlinda said, you really can just hop on your bike whenever you like, and you can get into town, or take the bus. The bus system is pretty good too. So I think it's something to consider. I know it's so difficult to find housing. So I think you have to kind of take what you get. And that's the nice thing. If you take something for a couple of months and decide, you wanted to move somewhere outside, or you wanted to move somewhere downtown, you have those options. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. So I remember you guys mentioned the orientation day in the slides, but we have something different this year, right? Arlinda, did you know anything about our orientation day this year?
I gotta say that I don't know the dates by heart, and it could be that we didn't update them in the slides. I'm looking quickly at maybe someone who's in the chat from our international student office who can confirm the dates, because maybe we didn't update them. It should be on the website, though.
Website's always a good place to go.
Yeah, but
I'm following the chat to see if anyone can confirm.
Yeah, but keep in mind, because we still need to follow the instructions of Dutch government. So if we are not allowed to have like this kind of big event, then we will need to adjust it to another form.
Yes, yeah, so it definitely will happen, but maybe in a different form than what we were used to.
Yeah, so
it will be from 26th till 28th August. I just looked it up.
Sweet ride.
Wow.
And I have a nice question about why our bikes are more famous than cars in the Netherlands. It's quite a broad question.
Well, it's stuff Dutch people like. So that's answer number one. Answer number two, a lot of European cities were built before cars existed. And so then to modify them to be able to accommodate cars was challenging. And it has been done. Cars can drive in most Dutch cities. but it's just much easier to get around by bike. And as you saw, they are so small, so small.
Yeah, and also honestly, around the city center, so like the inner city centers of multiple cities, it's just not possible to park. There's all these kind of one-way streets, and there's a lot of areas where only pedestrians are allowed or only bicycles. So honestly, to get around within the city of Utrecht, it's just not convenient at all to have a car. And if you want to park somewhere, it costs you a lot of money.
Oh man, like €3 an hour or something?
Yeah, exactly. It's super expensive. Before I moved to my little village where I live now, I used to live in the city center, and then we got a car. But there's no way to get a permit for parking it near our house because it's all full and there's a waiting list. So you have to be on the waiting list for a year in order to get a parking spot. So we had to park our car about 3-4 kilometers away and actually cycle to our car every day in order to use it.
You'll actually
it's just ridiculous. You just, it's very not convenient.
You'll actually find as you search for housing, you'll see some really cheap places. Those are not houses. Those are parking spots. People are renting out their extra storage shed or whatever for your car because that is how crazy trying to park is.
Yeah, so just buy a bike. We can't stress it enough. I'm sorry.
Use public transportation if a bike isn't convenient for you. Public transportation is great, but you do have to have a mask.
Yeah, so we are almost at the end of this webinar. Shall we answer 1 or 2 more questions?
Sure.
So I think this can be for Alexandra and Lowe because this question is about what should I bring from the States and Canada or North America in general?
Alexandra?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I would say, so I came with a couple of bags of sort of clothes and personal effects, and I did buy everything when I got there. So I did a trip to IKEA. One of my colleagues helped. She drove out, and we loaded it up with a table and chairs and some small things for my apartment when I did get it. And then I think the converters for your outlets, electrical outlets, is a good one. I use I know Apple does a kit that you can buy that has all the different converters for different countries. So I did have that, and that was really helpful. But they're really cheap. You can get them, I think, probably at the HEMA. You can get everything at the HEMA.
Yeah, you can get them on a street market.
Yeah, exactly, or maybe a market or wherever. So it's pretty easy to sort of get that stuff when you're there. I mean, there's nothing that you could get, I think, that you couldn't get at either like an Atos or even at the Albert Heijn or wherever. That if you do forget something, I wouldn't worry too much. But I'm just trying to think what else. Yeah, no, I think because the plugs are different, I think I would. If you wanted a kettle or something, you would just buy it there. You can get stuff for quite cheap.
So cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with everything Alexandra just said. I think just clothing wise, that's bring your favorite outfits for wind and rain. Mm-hmm. That fall fashion for wind and rain, and think like, okay, waterproof makeup. I don't know. Yeah.
Don't worry about bringing a blow dryer to your face. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? And jeans. I think there were, half a dozen occasions that I got dressed up, in something more fancy than jeans. So it's pretty standard.
Oh yeah, it's very casual.
Very casual.
Very casual. Yeah, I think that's about it then.
Yeah, I think there's no more questions, and most of questions have been already answered by our other amazing colleagues. So I think this is the end. And do you guys have something to say before we wrap up this webinar? Lowe, Arlinda, and Alexandra? No?
No, I just
thank you guys for attending. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we are very happy to see you all here, and thank you for your participation. And we are looking forward to seeing you in Utrecht this September, I hope.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And if you have any questions regarding to your admission or application, please write to our admission office. Otherwise, you can always reply to our pre-departure email. But one thing I want to say before we end up this webinar, we do recommend AON company for your insurance, but we are not their customer service. So if you have any questions about your insurance with them, please write to their company. Yeah, so that's it. And good evening for people from Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan. You are awesome. And for the States and Canada, enjoy your day and see you soon. See ya.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.